Zoom in on global affairs with insightful debates and exclusive interviews. This is World Insight.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. As the Chinese New Year rings in, we are to embrace the Year of the Horse, a symbol of vitality and galloping momentum. Talking about horses in the Year of the Horse is not just an echo of tradition. It reflects the modern ethos of sports. And on the international equestrian stage, one figure deeply connected to China continues to capture global attention. Hua Tian, the rider who competes proudly for China. His story with horses is one of perseverance and grace. He told me, however, that the time he spends with the horses and the sport teaches him so much about life and companionship. You have a very special companionship with horses. Tell me more about your understanding of the horse.
Horses are my life. We're not just training and competing, but we're looking after them day in, day out. They're amazing personalities. Each 9 of the horses I have completely different, very strong personalities. It's an amazing thing to do. It's an amazing life. We're surrounded by these big, incredibly graceful, beautiful, generous animals who have essentially over millennia evolved to run away from us. They are supposed to be prey. We're supposed to be predators. And our life as riders, surrounded by these horses, is consumed by this question of how do we get these amazing animals to trust us.
When we talk about your team of 9, can you now, without a blink of eyes, name their names, first of all?
Well, it's a little bit complicated that because they all have 3 different names. They have their competition name. So, for example, the horse I took to Paris has a very long Belgian name called Ilson van Barrelhof, which is on their passport. And then they have a stable name, which is what we call them at home. So I guess a nickname. And we call him Chocs, for short for chocolate, because he's big, brown, and Belgian. And then we have a Chinese name as well. And of course, he's called Xiaoli.
Among them, can you name the most naughty one and actually the most intellectual one, if you can?
Well, intellectual in terms of being very aloof and very arrogant and very into himself would definitely have to be Chocs, Xiaoli, who I took to Paris. He's probably the most arrogant person I've ever met in my whole life.
This is one of the best way to explain intellectual. Anyway, what about the most naughty one?
I have a new horse, a 6-year-old, lovely, lovely horse called Tifa or Oscar. And he's wonderful, but he's just at that year of sort of 5 and 6. It's a little bit like human beings going through sort of adolescence, teenage, and he's just come out of a month of being really, really tricky. So at the moment, I would say maybe Oscar is at the top of the naughty list. But it tends to sort of exchange depending on where everybody is.
So how do they, try to be with one another? How do they see you, their common friend?
Of course, the great horses have big personalities, and it's a little bit like great people. You never know whether the personality comes before the greatness or the greatness and then the personality. At the heart of it, they're still horses, so they're still very driven by instinct, by the herd mentality. So obviously in the wild and over their evolution, they've grown to have certain instincts in a group. They have to be around other horses. They get very anxious by themselves. When the way that they view relationships is through this herd identity, what we call the pecking order. So who is above who in the hierarchy? And that's how horses view each other, but that's also how they view a relationship with you as their rider or their carer is, am I in charge of you or are you in charge of me? And this is not about conflict, but it's about knowing where you stand in this world. And if you as a rider or the person looking after them on the floor step into a horse's world and are confident and take a leadership role and give them a clear idea of where you want to go and what you want to do, very clear about yourself and clear with them, they will look to you as the leader and be very comfortable in that position. If
I
you
see.
don't approach with confidence and you leave a vacuum, a horse is very quick to fill that vacuum. And then suddenly you don't really know who's in charge here. You thought you were in charge, but actually it seems the horse is now. And obviously, being a big
Wow.
animal, it's very difficult then to readjust that pecking order, as it were.
How do you adjust that? Your role both as a boss, so to speak, and also as someone who is so emotionally attached to them.
Of course, you try to be the leader, especially as a rider. However, in reality, your relationship is very multifaceted. Sometimes you're the leader. Sometimes you feel like you're their teacher. Sometimes you feel like you're a family member, a sibling. Sometimes, quite often, you feel like they're your teacher, and so you're constantly navigating this very complex relationship dynamic between you and your horse, and obviously when you then start to approach it from a high performance point of view, like we do, then pushing boundaries, working hard in training, competing in competitions comes into it as well. And I think from the rider's point of view, the mentality that you have to approach it with is you have to be very open, you have to be
Yeah.
very patient. You have to be competitive, but at the same time very balanced, because it's a little bit like dealing with children. Of course, you, as a sports person, and with your goals and with competitions, you're applying your goals and your aims and your competitiveness. But the more pressure you apply doesn't necessarily end up in the direction you want it to go in. Of course, you put more pressure on the horse than anxiety and discomfort, and all of these come into it. So you have to be very balanced in your approach, take a long-term view, and more often than not, you just don't get what you want.
What are some of the tricks or the secrets, quote unquote, you have? For example, right before a match. For example, during a match in which the horses were a little bit afraid or reluctant to move along. What are the tricks? What sound would you make? What kind of, actions you would take? What kind of gestures? What kind of ambience you try to create so that they got the message?
The secret is that there are no secrets. There are no shortcuts with horses. And I think that's what's so magical about them, is in many ways they are incredibly leveling creatures. It doesn't matter who you are, how influential you are, how much money you spent on them, or any of that stuff, which actually, from human to human interactions is so influential for us. But for horses, they don't know and they don't care. The only thing that they care about is how much time you spent with them, how much trust they have in you and in one another, how much partnership you have, and this concept of horsemanship, 骑射精神, how much the values of horsemanship you brought to that partnership, and I think that's a very, very special thing. It really comes down to the quality of time that you've spent with them and how they view you within that relationship.
What is the quality of time that you are referring to?
I think right down to the bottom in terms of the value side, we talk about horsemanship, which is the values that you as a rider bring to your relationship with a horse, which we call respect, responsibility, and compassion.
How do you show your respect?
They are big emotional animals, so you have to be respectful of the way that they look at the world. You have to be respectful of their size and their power. But at the same time, I would call it mutual respect, not just straight respect, because you also, the challenge of being a rider is how do you get the horse to respect you? And
Right.
respect is not necessarily control, and it's certainly not domination or fear. You cannot approach a big animal, emotional animal like a horse who already is predetermined to fear you and run away from you and instill more fear. In the short term, you might achieve a couple of things, but in the long term, that's not a basis for trust and partnership.
I'm sure they are. Let's have Chocolate, the, the toughest guy among the crowd, as an example. How did you establish your relationship with him?
First of all, you have to respect him. He has a huge amount of ego. So you have to walk up to him, not too quickly. You cannot just treat him like any other horse. I think he expects that. But then once you're in his space, once he's let you into his space, you have to then start to build boundaries with him and say, okay, Chocs, I respect you, but at the same time, we need to work together. If I ask you to do this and you react in this very negative way, actually, that's not very fair. That's not acceptable. And you have to find the right way and the right balance to communicate where these boundaries are and communicate them over time, so that over time, Chocs understands that, yes, he may well be the alpha in this situation, but what it is that we're trying to do together is something that he also wants to do. And so he needs to work.
That?
Oh, it takes time. For example, it may well be the length of the training session. So Chocs may well do something really well. You're trying to improve something in the dressage, maybe, and you're working on a specific movement or a specific reaction, and he reacts really well. And when he reacts well, you drop the reins, you give him a pat, you make a fuss of him, and he understands then that is a reward. Whereas if he doesn't get it, or he's evasive, or trying to wriggle out of that reaction, that training session may well just go on a little bit longer than before, just to try and encourage him to understand that actually, this is what we are trying to do as a partnership. And you compound that over many years of training together. Chocs and I trained together for 8 years. And when you compound that over that amount of time, horses are intelligent animals. They understand that this is what they do. They get a reward. They do this, then the training session continues a little bit longer than before.
Tell me more about, how do you see sportsmanship? Another very philosophical question, but also to see that you participate in a sport in which it is not just you, but you and the horses together as a team. It is super challenging, I would assume, because one has to, motivate yourself and also motivate a team of animals with you. That is super challenging. Tell me more about that.
There are two key things here. First of all, I don't do this by myself. I have had an amazing team throughout my career supporting me. My grooms at home. At the moment, I have Rebecca, who runs the yard, and Holly, who is my competition groom, comes to all the competitions. The vets, the farriers, my horse owners, my madru, my supporters, my federation, the Chinese Equestrian Association, the Shanghai Equestrian Team. There's a huge network of support behind each and every rider and team of horses. Secondly, I would say I was very, very privileged as a child to have grown up around horses. Not only in terms of giving me then this opportunity to be a rider down the road, but I would say ponies and horses are the most amazing, magical creatures in helping to teach young people about life skills, about values, and things like not just the values of horsemanship, respect, responsibility, and compassion, but patience, determination, how to be assertive, how to be determined. And then I think some of the most important lessons in life, how to win, but more importantly than that, in my experience, how to lose. And I think horses have shaped my personality and character as a result. And talking to many of my friends and teammates who ride, I would say that they are equally as grateful for that privilege as well. And then finally, I think between those two things, working with a team and the privilege growing up with horses is the opportunity to juggle a lot of different things. I think as a rider, again, you are, it looks like a very peaceful life, just you and your horse working out different problems together, how to develop one another. But actually, being a rider is a full-time juggle. It's like having 9 children.
Wow.
You also then have a team that you have to manage to help you with those 9 children. You have to find a way to finance all of that, and continue to develop. And you're on a, certainly for me as a Chinese athlete, you're on a 4-year cycle around every Olympics, seasons. It's a lifelong juggle.
From epic tales of mystery and magic to accounts of battle and empire, from the verses of ancient poets
关关雎鸠，在河之洲
to the masterpieces of our times. A Light on Literature brings to life China's literary heritage and a look at the world in a new light.
How do you look like the younger generation of riders? Their understanding of the sport, their understanding of the spirit of that sport, compared to your time when you just competed for the Beijing Olympics?
I would say the development of the sport, of the industry, of equestrianism, the culture behind it, in China is unrecognizable from 2008. It's developed so much. I think we're at a really interesting turning point and very exciting period for the development of higher level performance equestrian sports in China. To me, it's a generational thing. I think the generation before me, Hua Tian, Hua Jialian, who was my first coach in Beijing.
Yeah, who is also the national champion, right?
Yes, a hero, a complete hero. And his generation were very much the pioneers at a time where China, in its modern history, had completely lost connection with the horse. And his generation were the first to reestablish that connection. I think my generation then, myself and my teammates, Song Huadong, Bao Yingfeng, Liang Ruiji, we are the first to have the opportunity to compete at Olympic Games and championships level. But the next generation, younger riders like Rao Jiayi, for example, and many of the young show jumpers. I think the last Asian Games, the average age was nearly like 21 years old for the show jumping team. That generation, often internationally educated, often have support from their families who can really throw serious resources behind them, and also have ridden within a new dynamic in China where the horse and the sport is really able to support them in an increasingly correct way. And that means when they come out to Europe to train, they're in a much better position to be able to, I think in the future, very much put China on the map for higher level equestrian sports, not just in terms of an individual, but in terms of a nation and as in a team.
You started very young in Beijing for the sport of equestrian, and then Hong Kong, then the UK, where your mom originally came from, and then back to China, representing China in the national team for the 2008 Games, and then discovering just starting to soar industry or the sport of equestrian. So how do you, as a kid, in the cross-cultural edge, trying to adjust over the years and play it and soar among all these changes that you just described it. To me, that is amazing. It's a lot of things going on all at the same time, isn't it?
Yes, I think when you put it like that, is quite incredible to look at it and just realize how many different things came together to give me this
Indeed.
unbelievable opportunity. Timing, I guess the backgrounds of my mum and dad, my dual heritage, as it were, it all very much sort of conspired and came together to give me these incredible opportunities. I think from my side, I'm probably just an oblivious boy. I'm lucky in that whilst all of these things were going on, I'm probably the type of person that's just happy getting on doing my thing.
How do you see, your days of trying to adjust and learn and be mutually respectful and resourceful? Meanwhile, the situation now, when you look at the younger generation, is it fair in a way?
It's very fair because it doesn't matter in our sport how much resources you have, how influential you are. At the end of the day, horses are incredibly humbling animals. They bring everybody back down to a certain level, and okay, your resources might mean that you can afford to some degree fast track things, but you can't, like I said at the beginning, there are no shortcuts. You may fast track this stage of your career, but you also miss out certain lessons and opportunities of learning, and opportunities to develop and build resilience, which I think is so important at the beginning of a career, especially in equestrian sports where resilience is incredibly important. And that may well cost you later on in your career. I think that that's actually one of the greatest challenges for the development of equestrian sports in China is many families and many of these younger riders are very, very ambitious, really want to get to the top as quickly as possible, which is not a bad thing. But in doing so, acquire horses that maybe help the younger riders to get to the top quicker. In that exact thing that they're trying to do, they're actually missing all of the opportunities of losing, of learning how to lose, learning how to behave when you lose, and use that in a constructive way. And at a certain point in the sport, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, how many resources you have, how many horses you have, it's really hard and you can't escape it. And you then need to rely on all of those lessons that you've learned earlier in your life to be able to push through, keep going. Because once again, this is a sport with a long shelf life. Us riders can be competing until our 50s, 60s, and often get better and better as we're going along. So it's trying to encourage many of these families to understand that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And actually, the difficulties at the beginning of the marathon often are what help you get to the top in the end.
Beautifully put, I have to say, once again. You're such a delightful person to talk to, and I learned a lot through our short conversation at the very beginning of the Year of the Horse. And by the way, Alex, this is the year for all your horses, right? So how are you going to celebrate and honor them for the Year of the Horse?
So we're going to have a yard Chinese New Year dinner. I'm very lucky.
Okay.
I moved stables last year to a beautiful place called Bolesworth in the northwest of England. And in my little cottage in Tatton Hall, the village next door, I literally have a Chinese restaurant 15 steps outside of my front door. So we're going to go... Yeah, lucky me. So we're going to go have bao jiaozi with my team and celebrate Chinese New Year with my team. My mum and dad will be down in London as well, so I'm going to go down and visit them. But for us, whilst much of the world will be resting and having lots of time with family, it's still very busy work time for us. The horses still need looking after. We're coming up to the beginning of a very busy season, so that there won't be rest and stopping for us.
Sounds like a very, shall I say, delightful but also busy New Year. All the best to you, to your team of 9 naughty boys for the year of
And
the
2
horse.
girls.
And 2 girls. Oh, okay, there we go. Boys and girls. And also to your team, your family. Happy the year of the horse. All the best. And that is my latest interview with Alex Hua Tian, the rider, proudly competes for China. And that is all the time we have for today. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.